Hey everyone, this is Jocelyn and welcome to this edition of Leap. My guest today is Christina Encarnacion, and we had to practice that a few times before we went live. And she is the author of Stuck in the Fire and founder of Healing with Christina. So Christina, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me on here. I'm so excited.
Oh, I'm so glad. And we've had such a delightful conversation kind of getting into and getting ready for today's show. So I'm going to jump right in and ask you, what is Healing with Christina? What is your business?
That's a very loaded question.
Sure.
So Healing with Christina, I've gone through a very long healing journey over the past, I'd say really 12 to 15 years. And I've finally come to a place where I'm at peace and ready to help others. Because I feel like once you've learned how to heal a little bit, you're able to move on to others. That's truly where you find healing, is through helping others. And so Healing with Christina is a company I've created where I've created a healing modality, which I call whole body healing. And that's where I bring in my intuitive empathy. So I'm able to help feel others' emotions and bring it to their awareness when they might not even be aware of it. And then I bring in energy healing along with life coaching and essential oil infused products to help with nutrition and everything. So the whole body healing, it's actually helping mind, body, soul, and spirit. Because when you think of it, when you go to like a doctor or you go to a psychologist, they're helping one piece of your body, one piece of the problem, not the whole problem. And so when I was going through my healing journey, I was going to so many different doctors and they were all trying so many different techniques, but I wasn't getting a resolution. And so finally I decided it's time for there to be like a one-stop shop. People need to be able to go somewhere and find complete healing within themselves and not have to go and piecemeal it together. And so with the whole body healing technique, it addresses mind, body, soul, and spirit. So you can find that complete healing within yourself and not have to go from person to person to person. So.
And you referenced when you were going through some things that you had several different professionals that you were working with. Mm-hmm. Can we start there? What was your journey?
Oh gosh. Well, I want to say it started at birth.
Well, we all did, right?
Right.
We enter this world and it's pretty traumatic, but yeah.
I truly feel now that we enter this world purely for learning and growing and developing ourselves. And we have to go through a journey, which we've already chosen before even entering this world to go through in order to learn what we came to learn on earth. I was born into a family with 5 children. I was the 4th child of 5, and I was born with ADHD and compulsion disorder and OCD and a couple of behavioral issues. And my poor parents didn't know how to handle me. And so I grew up being told that I was a problem, that I was not wanted, that I wasn't enough. And just every day I was just reassured how unneeded I was in my life. Regularly, I was told, I love you, Christina, but I just don't like you. And so that told me like how unworthy I was, unlovable I was, and how I would never be enough to do anything. At 18, I was kicked out of my parents' house 5 days after I turned 18 and had to really learn how to become an adult very quickly. And 6 months after I left their home, I started getting very ill. I couldn't eat. In fact, every time I would eat, I would start to vomit. And I didn't want to, it just automatically came up. So I went to the doctors, and the first doctor told me I was bulimic. It was a psychological issue and I was seeking attention. And so he sent me to a shrink. I went to another doctor and he said it was stress. And if I would just de-stress my life, then everything would be fine. And so I kept going doctor to doctor to doctor. In 3 months' time, I lost 75 pounds. I dropped down to 96 pounds. And finally I was going to die if I didn't figure it out. So I went back to my father, and we hadn't spoken in 6 months. And when he saw me, he dropped to the ground. He started sobbing. And he's like, what is wrong with you? I was like, I don't know, but I'm going to die. That's all I know. And so he closed down his business. He was an entrepreneur. He closed down his business and he started seeking answers and being my voice. And after he was able to locate a doctor that knew what was wrong with me, I was diagnosed with echalalia, which is a really rare esophageal condition where the muscles of the esophagus work opposite. So instead of pushing food down to my stomach, it pushed food up. So I literally couldn't eat. My body was starving itself to death. And I was the most severe case they've seen in the United States. And most people are diagnosed between the ages of 50 and 60 years of age. Mind you, I was 18 at the time. And they said most people pass away between 2 to 5 years after being diagnosed with this condition because there's no cure for it. And they typically develop esophageal cancer. So between 18 to 24, I underwent 30 surgeries on my esophagus to stay alive. So they just kept cutting it and cutting it and cutting it. And eventually got to the point where the doctor said, we can't help you anymore. So they just started to medicate me with morphine and Dilaudid and Phenergan and really high doses of medication to just keep me comfortable until I passed away, basically. At about that time, when they had given up on me, I got pregnant with my daughter, and I was in a relationship with an extremely abusive man. Because I was pregnant with my daughter, and they told me I was going to die, I would never have a life. I was like, there's got to be some reason for me to live. I've got this child inside me that I was told I would never be able to have. I need to fight for my life. I need to find a way to survive. And so one night, as he was laying into me and starting to beat me again for our evening ritual, I got enough courage to fight him off of me and get out of the house and kick him out. And I left him after that. I separated myself, and I did it not for myself, but for my daughter, because I wanted to give her a chance to live. And at 6 months along in the pregnancy, I went into renal failure because of my illness. And we had to deliver her early, and she ended up passing away literally a minute before I delivered her. Her heart stopped beating, and she was too small to be put on the ventilators and fight for life. So she ended up going home to live with God. And that was my turning point. That's when I realized, like, is there really anything to live for anymore? Because she was all I had left. She was the only reason, the only thing that I could find to say this life is worth living was for that child. And so when she died, like, I died with her. And I didn't know how to live any longer. And even after I delivered her, my kidneys and my liver still were not operating. And it was about 48 hours after I had delivered her and she had passed away. It was weird. It was like an out-of-body experience. I was floating above my body, and I could see the doctors and the nurses in the room talking to my family next to my bedside and telling them, anyone who wants to say goodbye to Tina, bring them in now because she's not going to live through the night. She's done. We can't get anything working. We've tried everything we can think to try. She's not going to make it through the night. So come and say your goodbyes now. And then my father once again spoke up and said, no, there's got to be something more. You can't quit yet. Like, there's a reason that she's here. And so they said, well, we'll run a couple more tests and we'll try one more round of a new medication. And if that doesn't work, there's nothing left we can do. And so I remember following my body as they pushed my hospital bed down the halls to this big, huge machine to run this test on me. And as they pushed my body into that machine, I felt God talking to me. I literally saw this brilliant, bright light, and I was like, I'm finally get to go home. It's done. I don't have to fight anymore. And I was begging him, like, just take me home. I just want to be with my daughter. I just want to go home. I'm tired of fighting. This was 6 years into my diagnosis. And I was like, I'm just tired of fighting. I'm done. I'm done. Just take me home. And he said, you have a choice. I will take you home if you want to. But if you choose to stay, this is what the life you will have. And he allowed me to feel the love of a husband who I had not yet met, and a love that I had never experienced on this earth before. I knew that man thought I walked on water. He saw me as his everything, which I didn't even know was possible, to be loved in that way by a man. And I looked out the window of a house that I knew was mine, and I saw 3 children playing in the backyard, and I knew those were my children. And then I saw all of these little lights of all the souls that I had yet to touch in this world, knowing that if I allowed myself to pass away in this moment, those thousands of lives would never be touched in the way they needed to be touched. And so I chose to stay. And it was still a week before my organs started to operate. And I was in that hospital for so long, but I finally made it. And I was able to go back home. Although I chose to stay and fight for this life, leaving that hospital with empty arms when I was supposed to be walking out with my daughter was harder than I could have ever imagined. And I fell into another deep depression, and I lost my will to fight for quite some time. And it was 8 years until I finally remembered why I was still here. I had started a new career, and I was assigned a boss, and he was this wretched man. And I had asked him if I could have my daughter's birthday off. And he looked at me and he said, "Why would you take the day off? She's dead. There's nothing to celebrate." And I crumbled right there in the lobby of the business, and tears fell from my eyes. And I had a mental breakdown. And at that point, I realized this is not what my life is supposed to look like. My life has a purpose, and my life has a meaning, and it's time for me to pull my head out of my ass and live for what I'm supposed to live for. And that's when I really started going down that journey of healing myself and finding what God needed me to do in my life to fix the broken pieces so that I could be there for everybody else. My husband, who he brought to me 3 months after I got out of the hospital after Trinity died, I met my husband. And 3 months after I met him, we got married, which was completely insane. But
Most people might think that, yes.
Yes. We're celebrating 12 years of marriage this year. And we have 3 amazing children, and they are all alive. It was a journey to get them here, but we're all alive and we're all thriving. And I now own a successful healing business, and I am serving the purpose that God created me to serve. And I have no doubt in my mind that I am doing exactly what I'm supposed to be doing every single day. And I am just so blessed that I can wake up and help these people. And I am so blessed that God gave me that wretched boss to force me to pull my head out of my ass and say, enough is enough. It's time to live, and give me the tools that I needed in order to get there. Because at that time, I would not have even considered the healing modalities that I ended up using to find healing within myself without having that mental breakdown. So it was just a beautiful journey. Although it was painful and hard, it was exactly what I needed, and it has empowered me to be able to do what I do today. So, long story, but
Why do you think it took so long? And maybe that's not appropriate to say long, because that may not be long for you.
Yeah. I think I was running from the pain. I don't think I wanted to deal with the pain. When I got out of the hospital, I literally went right back to work. I acted as though I had not just lost my daughter. It was crazy. In the time that I escaped that abusive relationship, to me giving birth and losing my daughter, to me, another thing I forgot to mention was I got out of the hospital with delivering Trinity in August. In December, I was back in the hospital having an open chest operation to save my life again because of my esophageal issues. So in the span of 6 months, I escaped an abusive relationship. I gave birth to my daughter who passed away. And then I almost lost my life again due to my esophagus condition in the span of 6 months. I got out of the hospital in December. I met my husband in March. I married him in October. So, I mean, the process of the trauma that I endured was so fast that I didn't process it. I just kept going and going and going, and I didn't allow I didn't allow myself to pause, breathe. And I think that that's so normal for people that are going through trauma, is we run from it because we don't want to deal with it and process it. And so we run and we run and we run until our body can't put up with it any longer, and it just shuts down.
Yeah.
And that's what happened to me, is I just kept running until my body said, you're not listening. And it just gave out and it crumbled. And I had to allow myself to heal in order for my life to function again.
Yeah. It's interesting because before we hit the record button, I was just sharing something quite personal with you. Is I've been on this fence of, and I'm going to comment on it. I've known the audience that I'm here to serve.
Mm-hmm.
It's my own story, and it's my own journey. It's my own journey through romantic relationships, and we all know, really, at the end of the day, it's your relationship with yourself and healing that inner wounds within you. And I have been running from it,
Mm-hmm.
and in resistance of it, because I know there's still a lot of unhealed trauma within me. And the thing is, you can't run from it, because if that's what your true intention and your purpose for your life is, and you start to really plug into the greater powers, the universe will provide you with a space and opportunity to create. If you choose to acknowledge it as space and opportunity rather than, why is this happening to me?
Mm-hmm. Very true.
So how do you shift from that? How do you shift from, you had a lot of trauma in a very short period of time. How did you sort of find your way through?
So, a lot of help. When I had that mental breakdown at work, they required me to go through 6 weeks of therapy before I could return. And so when I went to that therapist, she said, you have to acknowledge what you've been through and stop running. So that was the first step, was acknowledging where I've been through, and acknowledging that I have to allow myself to heal from it and to stop ignoring it. And then from there, I ended up going to a Reiki healer. So Reiki is an energy healing modality, and it's kind of like a therapy session without words. And so what they do is they go into your energy storage, like your chakras, basically. They go into your chakras and they clear the trauma out of each individual chakra so that you can move forward in life. So as you go through life and you stuff your emotions, right? We all do it. Someone hurts me, I want to be strong and pretend like I'm not hurt, so I'm going to stuff it. I'm not going to show it, right? And so you stuff it somewhere within your body. Well, it sets roots. It lays its foundation and it sets up its home right there. And a little piece of you gets imprisoned with that emotion that you're choosing to stuff and not heal. And then you keep moving through life and you get hurt by someone else, and you go ahead and you stuff that emotion and it sets roots and sets up its home in you too. And so your DNA starts to change and your body starts to try to reject that emotion through physical ailments. And so what Reiki does is it goes in and it pulls those roots and it helps to remove that trauma so that you can move forward in life. And so I went to a Reiki healer who actually helped me to deal with a lot of the trauma that I had in my life, which was really the turning point, like the pivotal point in my healing process. And then after I was able to deal with all of that emotion that was stuffed for so many years and move past it, I ended up running into a life coach. And this life coach helped me realize, yeah, you're healing from your emotions, but are you moving forward? You're still stuck. You're still not moving. You're stagnant. And so she helped me to develop a goal and a plan on how to achieve my goals. And she forced me. She held me accountable. She was like calling me, like, did you do your homework? Did you do this? And so I had this Reiki master helping me, and I had this life coach helping me, and I had this therapist helping me. So I had all these pieces. And the blessing was none of them were going to let me stay where I was at. All of them were like, you need to move forward, you need help. And I was still on all of my morphine, I was still on all of my medications. And so then I met an essential oil person, and she was like, you don't have to live on these drugs. You have the choice to turn it to nature if you want. And so I started to explore essential oils, and I was able to find an essential oil that helped to get me off of my morphine. I've been on morphine for 6 years. And through using the essential oils, I was completely off of all of my drugs within about 90 days. And once I was off all the drugs, my brain fog cleared, and I was able to see life in a way I had not seen in years. And so I think with all of those pieces, the energy healing, the essential oils, the life coaching, the therapist, I think all those pieces together helped to pull me from the darkness and set my feet on solid ground so that I could finally see the path I had to follow and allow those puzzle pieces to fit together properly. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, and it's something that I can relate to so very personally. You know, although our journeys were a bit different, mine began with walking away from a marriage that was no longer serving me, because my fire was an ember, to choosing me, to choosing. So for me, I had one different element is I also just sort of nutritional cleansing, and cleaning up my diet and what was actually coming into my body. In diet, obviously you had a bit of a different situation with your esophagus. I didn't have that situation. I just chose to clean up what was coming in in that form, and chose to sort of detoxify everything else. Found my first life coach through the way that life worked, tripped kind of over him. And I didn't know what that was. I didn't know what life coaching was about. I didn't know what neuro-linguistic programming was. In fact, that's not even how he described himself. He said he was a journey coach, and even then it was sort of ominous. And yet, as we continued down that pathway, it was NLP, energy healing. We talked about my chakras. And he introduced essential oils into the process, and the layers of the healing, of the trauma, of all the stories that I had told myself about who I was, began to heal and began to fall away. And what came in replacement of that was, as I could say it, bright white light. The person who was always there, but the brain fog and the stories and the heft and the weight and all the things that we layer on top of ourselves, just it fell away. And what came was what's here now. Although working through this, it's a never ending, right? It's continual.
Oh, it doesn't ever end.
Yeah. So, you had a lot of elements introduced in a relative quick form, as did I.
Yeah.
How then did you realize that what your path, how did you receive clarity as to what your path was going to be?
So, with the Reiki, it really heightened my intuition, which was really nice. And so I started to get messages from God again. I started to actually listen. I think the messages were always there. I just chose to ignore them. Like you mentioned, it's choice, right? It's a choice. And so when I chose it was time for me to heal, the doors opened. And so it was really beautiful and eloquent the way that God introduced the little pieces in, because I was forced to do therapy, which I never would have done if I had not been forced. And that therapist opened up my eyes to Reiki. And Reiki opened up my eyes to life coaching. And I guess the essential oils I had been doing for a while, but I hadn't realized that they could heal me in the way, not necessarily heal me, but they could support my body in the healing. Like you said, it helps to clear the brain fog, and it helps to take the layers away so you can get down to the root cause. And it's amazing how the essential oils have the power to do that. And so I think just by the pieces falling together is what allowed me to see my journey. So my Reiki master that was helping me, as soon as she saw my potential that I had not seen, she said, I think you need to learn Reiki. And so she attuned me to Reiki 1 and 2. And then through my life coach, I was working with her for about a year. And then after about a year, she said, you have some amazing potential. I want to work with you as a partner. And
Wow.
so, yeah. And so my Reiki master wanted to work with me as in a business partner kind of a deal. And then my life coach wanted to work with me as in a business partner kind of a deal. And both partnerships got me to believe in myself, but then fell away. So it was really interesting how they set the beliefs in motion, but then something happened in both relationships where the partnerships didn't work. But because I had that belief and that fire and passion within me ignited, I was like, I can do this on my own. I don't need anyone else's help. And so in my book, I explained the partnership and how I could have allowed the breakup of the partnership to just allow me to be devastated and fall back into my old ways and my pity parties like I used to do. But because of the healing that took place in those roles and those relationships, I was able to rise above it and see my true purpose and go, okay, no, this is just God's way of clearing the path so that I can fulfill what he needs me to fulfill. So it was really interesting the way that it all worked out.
So I'm glad you brought up the book because I wanted to bring that to the forefront for a moment. Why now? Because I know that you're just now releasing this book, or am I correct? Right? Yeah.
Just released the book.
And how long has it been? How long has it been a fire within you?
So I started writing the book in 2017 while I was on bed rest from another surgery. And I started writing the book as a form of healing, not even to publish it, just to kind of get the words out of my heart so that I could close the wound. And then as I started to write, I started to realize that people could live or people could heal themselves from my journey. They might not have to go through as much pain as I went through if they could get my words beforehand, before they get into that situation. It might be able to help them see what's ahead before they get there and stop them in their path. Or the people that have already gone through the trauma, it can change their perspective so they can begin to heal instead of being imprisoned in their mind the way that I used to be. And so it took me 3 years to write the book because each chapter is a lesson of my life that changed and empowered me. And so ripping those Band-Aids off at times, like when I wrote the chapter about Trinity's death, that took me 6 months to write because the tears would not stop flowing. And every sentence I wrote ripped off a deeper layer of pain. And so there were chapters in there that would take me a day to write, and there were chapters in there that would take me 6 months to write. And so it took 3 years to write the book. And I feel like I finally finished the book because I finally got to where I needed to be able to help others. I wasn't prepared to help others in the capacity I am now because I was still doing the healing. And that book was my healing process. The book is actually part of a trilogy. It's called A Rising Phoenix Trilogy. And this is book 1, Stuck in the Fire, A Story of Resilience. And it's the story of my life. I'm currently working on book 2, which is called Emerging from the Fire. And it's a guide to self-healing. So it literally walks you step by step on how to heal yourself from your trauma. So that, because the thing is by healing yourself, you're healing the world.
Yeah.
And this world needs some healing right about now.
So I'm going to take that a step further. I think there's always been a need for healing, right? Mm-hmm. This is not new to our generation. It is not new to coronavirus. Right. I think what the biggest factor that we might be in right now is there's such a level of greater awareness, right? Because the philosophies that we're talking about, Reiki is centuries old. Yes. You know, the healing processes that you're diving into are in Eastern medicine for, eons.
Yes.
What we've done over years, though, in my purview, is that we've created a space where it was unsafe to talk about what was really happening within us, right? And I really lean that more toward probably Western culture than Eastern culture. I don't have as much knowledge about Eastern culture because I was born in Western culture, but for so long we were told, oh, just put on a happy face and everything will change. And and like you said, stuffing all of that down. And we all stuff it in different ways. I punish myself for food, and I'm certainly not alone in that. I know that. I eat because I'm angry about whatever the emotional state that puts unhealthy food in my body, and that's a conscious choice or maybe someone subconscious, but anyway, I know it exists. I have believed that we're witnessing a place now where we get to really embrace what's actually really happening within us, whether we verbalize it through our words, through our feelings, through how we show up, how we see things, how we hear things, how we think about things, touching all those senses. And now we're sort of so much of the world has been asked to sit still, or forced to, right? We're being asked to sit still, and the first thing that starts to come up is what's happening up here. Mm-hmm. So we're in this beautiful space that we get to learn more about who we are and how we apply these types of modalities that resonate best.
Yeah, I think that's why Corona's here.
I agree. Go on.
I think that this world has been crying out for healing for so long. How many times before Corona did you hear, I just need a vacation, I just need a break, life is passing me by too fast, I can't catch up? And this is what we brought upon ourselves energetically. We called out in masses for a break, and the earth delivered.
Yeah.
The earth, all right, here you go. In fact, I'm going to do it worldwide. Everyone's going to take a break at the same time, so no one has an excuse not to have time any longer.
Yeah.
So I honestly believe that we brought this on ourselves energetically, and this is the universe's way of saying, okay, it's time to pause because you guys aren't getting what you're supposed to get from this life.
Yeah. I'm so grateful that came through, because I feel very much the same way, that this was, I'm not going to get crazy into the conspiracy theories, because we know there are conspiracy theories out there. I also believe that energetically we have been asking for this for a very long time. And I want to go back, though, to the asking for pause and asking for vacation or time off, or I can't keep up, because I think that relates back to how we choose to live.
Correct.
And so I'd like to kind of put that ball back in your court of how does that iterate for people that you're working with?
So I think when people come to me, it's because they realize they need to pause, but they're not giving themselves permission to pause. And so by coming to me and saying, I'm at this point in my life and I don't know what direction to go, I don't know how to take a breath, I don't know even how to begin to heal, I don't know how to forgive, I don't know how to release these feelings. They're so deep rooted that this is just the way that I am, that I don't want to be this person anymore. I am that light. I am that person that grabs you by the hand and says, okay, we're going to figure this out. I'll hold the light. You just tell me where we're going. And the cool thing is people come to me and they say, I want to find healing. I want to find peace. But subconsciously, they have no clue. They're scrambling for what that even means. And so through the energy healing, I am able to move the consciousness out of the way and their egos out of the way so they can lean into themselves and breathe and put the pieces together themselves. I am only there to hold space and to guide them. And I'm allowing them to do the work themselves. And so that's the real beauty in the whole body healing is I give you all the tools you need, and then I hold the space for you to put the tools to work. And so it's a partnership. And it's a really beautiful one because it's not just between me and my client, it's between me and my client and the universe. And when you bring that universal energy in, or the God energy in, or whatever name you want to call it, that energy does all the fixing for you. You just need to learn how to hold that space. And most people, when they're so filled with trauma and unknown and the brain fog, they don't know how to hold that space. So I'm that conduit to be able to reconnect to them with universe or life energy and allow them to come back down to earth and live in the life they were meant to live.
Yeah. I think a layer of that I'd like to add there is, I want to go back to the piece about, kind of before Corona really hit, and the request of quieter time, a slow down time, people literally living for Friday, literally living for their vacation.
Mm-hmm.
And now we have this opportunity where we can actually shift ourselves in here and in here. And for those of you just listening, in my head, in your head and your heart, I forget that I have the audio portion and a video portion of this. But when you live in those two spaces all the time, I'm actually living my own life of joy day in and day out and living in the present moment. There's that, what falls away is the Fridays.
Mm-hmm.
What falls away is the need for vacation. Not that you still don't need time to just regenerate, but it's now built into your daily persona because now you know who you are.
Correct. It kind of shuts down the exterior noise because you're not out and about. You're not getting all those extra sensory things. You're not getting the boss barking down your neck. They're calling a couple times a day, maybe, if you're lucky.
Yeah.
It's that exterior noise that is so loud that you can't hear your heart over your mind.
Yeah.
And that's where I really teach my clients is to start to listen to the heart, because your heart and your mind, they play like a tug of war, right? Who's going to win? And so many of us have our faces in our devices that our mind always wins because it's so noisy that our heart never has the opportunity to speak up. And so by teaching our minds to quiet down so our hearts can step up and we can live out of that space of love and understanding and compassion instead of judgment and turmoil and just disease, we're able to bring our consciousness to where it's supposed to be living from.
Where is that? Where is it?
Your heart.
Yeah.
You should be living from your heart. As soon as you let your mind jump into the game, all this negativity comes up. And it's true. So you have to allow your heart to become stronger than your mind.
Yeah. I call it a blank space.
Mm-hmm.
And so, sharing a little bit about from where I was started. When I began working with my first coach, and I'm actually revisiting it right now, is I started turning my phone off. First of all, I removed Facebook from my phone. That's where I started. And then I stopped looking at my text messages. And in truth, at the time, I had relocated halfway across the country. I wasn't working. Well, I was working a little bit. And I really didn't know many people. So I wasn't getting a lot of messages anyway. And what I was starting to realize is I was like looking at my phone for the answers, right? I was looking outside of me for the answers. And I stopped. At first it was like an experiment. And then I stopped. I just shut it down. I was like, I'm going to turn my phone off. I'm going to leave my house and leave my phone at home. I mean, who does that, right? Who does that these days? And I'm going to go, for me, I had to connect with nature. And what I started to realize that I was starting to really live in the peace of the moment of where I was and living in a heart space. And my mind was sort of blank. And it was such a peaceful place of existence. And I will tell you that I've gone through that. And I've also now back in sort of that ugliness, I call it ugliness of looking at my phone for my answers again. I have removed Facebook again, but looking at my phone for my answers and like text messages. Oh, why hasn't this person replied yet? And like all that garbage that you say in your head. And then I've been riding my bike more. It's, you know, a piece that I enjoy. And I'm also finding myself actually having like fake conversations with other people while I'm riding. And I'm like, okay, let's churn that again. Let's get to the root of that. Stop having conversations with other people. Start having conversations with myself.
Yeah.
Or just be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then what's even better is when you can just not have conversations. To just sit quietly with yourself. That's when the real power steps in.
Yeah, I agree.
Mm-hmm.
So as we sit in this space where we're really literally, you know, requested to take a time out because of coronavirus, what are some of your observations that you're seeing for yourself, not for your clients so much as for yourself, living through this?
So reminding myself to be present in the moment. My kids have been really good at calling me out on it. Mom, put your phone down. Mom, we're here. Mom, turn the TV off. Mom, celebrate this time with us. My 9-year-old son told me that the other day. As I sat down to start working on my book, he said, Mom, you just published your first book. It's time for you to celebrate that victory and celebrate time with us. And I was like, how old are you? Like, you're 9. This is crazy.
What observation, though?
Oh, my kids are so stinking. They call me on my shit constantly. I talk to them more like adults than children, which I guess is a blessing because they call me on my shit like they're freaking adults too. So, so I would say being present in the moment, because I'm so focused right now on my business, I allow myself to go too far into the future. And so just being present in the moment, and then also to get outside, because I spend a lot of time inside. I tell myself, well, I deserve this. I worked really hard, so I should be able to sit in front of the TV for an hour and watch TV. Mm-hmm. I deserve to not get out of bed today because I worked really hard this week, which I do, but my body also needs the sun. My body needs movement. My body deserves to be treated correctly too. And so really not giving into my laziness and using the excuse of I deserve this, but to deserve movement as well so that I can sustain life.
Yeah.
That has been another one as well.
Yeah. And so what presents more comfortably, or what, when I say these two statements of sitting in front of the TV for an hour versus spending an hour in the sunshine, what are those, like, what comes up for you in either? Yeah.
So for me, sitting in front of the TV for an hour allows my brain to veg out and not think about anything. However, sitting in the sun for that hour allows me to go inside myself and reflect on my strengths and my power and praise myself and celebrate myself. So rather than going mindless, it allows me to be mindful. Mm-hmm. So that's the difference.
Yeah. And that acknowledging that perhaps we need both.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So final thoughts, we wrap up this conversation. You know, and I'm going to say kind of keep it present to really being at home right now. What are what's maybe one of your top observations that you're either sensing, hearing, seeing, or feeling about the state of the world that we're in right now?
I would say I feel like the world is doing a lot of healing as a whole through individual people healing right now. And I feel like once we are let loose after Corona, I think we're going to see a completely different world. I think we're going to be more compassionate with each other. I think we're going to be filled with love currently. And I hope that we stay in the mind frame that we're in right now. We are being forced to lean on each other, which is something that we haven't been forced to do in the recent years.
Mm-hmm.
So I really feel as though the universe, the energy in the universe is shifting to being more compassionate, more nurturing, and more loving. And I hope that we can sustain that.
That is my hope as well. that we come through the other side, because I'm sure you've seen the memes, about rushing back to what's normal, to normalcy, but then questioning, what are we rushing back to?
Exactly. It's all emptiness. The way that we were living was just emptiness. It was going with the motions. It was like a robot. And I think we're kind of becoming more connected with ourselves again. And in that process of connecting with ourselves, we're yearning for connection with each other.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah.
Absolutely agreed. Christina, thank you so much for sharing your time with me today and holding space for myself and for our audience and for everyone and every life that you touch.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciated it. It was a joy.
Thank you.